Disabled. Good afternoon. I hope you guys are keeping well. Yeah, thank you. It's such an honor to be here. I'm in transit, but either way, I was not gonna. Once this was set up, I was not gonna miss this. So I'm very honored to be here. Just allow me a few minutes to bring my video on in a bit.
Okay. Keep him open. Okay, Miss Margaret?
Yes.
Ah, okay, there you are. As you put the video on, let me welcome Miss Efe.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Thank you. And the sound is very sound and clear. Thank you. Datela Senior, can I, as we wait for Miss Margaret, can I check that you're okay on your side as well, that you can open your video and present and speak?
No, I'm okay now on my side. Thank you.
Ah, great. Okay. So as we wait for Ms. Kimani to settle down, I think the gentleman had given the floor to the ladies to present, to introduce themselves. So Ms. Efe, while we wait for Ms. Margaret, can you please go ahead, introduce the ladies, and the participants were waiting to hear from you. So how I met Ms. Efe is she has a lot of footprint in women empowerment across the continent. So I happen to have the honor of joining the Impact Her program. And as I was engaging in that capacity building this year, actually, I got inspired to actually start something similar and looking at the impact we could make in Lesotho as a small country, with women and youth making about 80% of the unemployment rate. So I thought, if anybody can do it, make a difference in their own country, it should start with the self, right? So I got inspired to actually start something like this. And then I said, okay, with my first event, I said definitely need to reach out and invite you. So welcome, Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's really an honor to be here, and it's very kind of you to have invited me. And obviously, it's a blessing to have had the opportunity to create a little inspiration for you as well. So really proud of what you're doing. And, I look forward to hearing many more amazing stories out of this. So as some of you may know, my name is Efe Yukala, and I'm the founder of Impact Her. Impact Her is a nonprofit organization that has directly supported over 135,000 women across 53 African countries. We support them through capacity building, business services, you name it. Like, it's really, think about us as a one-stop shop where a small business owner that is a woman can gain the skills and support that she needs to thrive. So that is what I do at night. In the day, I am an investment lawyer where I help advise on investments, basically private funds investments into exciting opportunities that could yield investors returns. I know some of you may be like, okay, why, like, you're doing a nonprofit, and that, yes, they are actually in a way connected. And that was actually my inspiration to help African women business owners to be able to tap into the financing and access the financing that they need for their business. So I leverage my investment law experience to help women really achieve their business financial aspirations. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was really inspiring. Okay. Miss Margaret?
All right. So thank you. I was requesting, I want to stop. I'm actually in transit. So just give me like 3 more minutes. Maybe I could give another speaker so that I can stop and sit.
Okay, great. All right. And Dada Francis. So in Sotho, for your benefit, Ms. Efe, and for some of the participants who are not from Lesotho, when we call our fathers and our brothers respectfully, we say Ndate. So don't be surprised every time I call the gentleman, I say Ndate and the name. So it just means master in our native language. So you can go ahead, Ndate.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity. Should say that I'm honored to be part of the deliberations today, and I hope to be part of many others to follow. Like it has been said, my name is Francis Nuku, and I am the executive committee member of the SMME support network. I should say that we are not SMME network Lesotho. We are SMME support network Lesotho, which is actually an organization or association of business development service providers. Our membership or the members of our network are not mostly enterprises themselves, but professionals from different spheres who organize themselves to support the SMMEs out there with the expertise that we have. Myself, coming from the accounting profession, I have also been involved in many other activities across Africa, mostly working with MSMEs and cooperatives. I've been involved in various conferences, even to as far as Egypt. I've been in Nairobi several times, Namibia, many other countries. We've been actually working on cooperatives and MSMEs issues. But I think when I later on get into the details of the presentation, I'll be able to clarify how MSMEs and cooperatives differ and relate. But this is who I am really, and I'm excited to be part of the forum. Thank you very much. And I must say that also, I as the SMME support network, we are implementing the program of the government of Lesotho, which is financed by the World Bank, and I am the project manager. The project is actually to capacitate, not to capacitate, is to incubate women and youth businesses. So we are currently in the process of doing that. So I am involved. I'm the one who's actually managing the intervention of the government of Lesotho through the SMME Support Network Lesotho in delivering the services to the youth and the women who are in business, of course. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dade. So you and Ms. Efe will come on board to help us in terms of some of the businesses that are not in the incubation program yet, to work out how we help those, so that by the end of the year, at least we can talk about a few other ladies which have done something or which have gotten the help to get to where they need to be, right?
Definitely will do that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right, there you are, my beautiful lady. You can go ahead. Are you ready? Okay.
Yeah, I'm ready. So good. I believe it's good afternoon for majority of us. So thank you so much for having me. It is a pleasure to meet all of you here. So my names are very long names. I go by Alda Margaret Kimani. For those of us who might want to link up with me after this. So it's Alda Margaret Kimani. You can look me up on LinkedIn and all the other socials. I'm logging in from Kenya. And as you can tell, I'm in transit. I had a different conference, and believe it or not, talking about entrepreneurship, I've just had to just stop somewhere, but not far from our international airport, because my daughter, who is 10 years old, speaking about job creation, my daughter, who is 10 years old, is actually a beekeeper and a value addition manufacturer. So we are going to, I'm actually helping her to go deliver her honey to our restaurants. And I think those are the things that we want. That's the Africa. I have this hashtag that I always talk about. The Africa we want, it is us to rebuild it. So what I do for a living, perhaps some of you are wondering, yes, I'm an investment banker. I have about 22 years in it. I started in Boston, Massachusetts. I am a big fan of my country. I mean, people in Africa don't understand how you can resign a big job in the States and go back to your home country. I am one of those risk takers and crazy people who are crazy about developing our own nation, and especially the continent of Africa. So I have been in the investment banking for, wow, about 10 years. I did 10 years in Boston, Massachusetts. Then when I resigned, when I came back home, the commercial banks here in Kenya were hunting me down. So I ended up working for a few banks, Chase Bank, and the last bank I worked for 3 years ago, I left the State Bank of Mauritius. I was heading the women banking and youth banking and PWDs. I know most commercial bankers don't talk about PWDs, but I'm crazy about diversity and inclusion. So that's what I was doing. But 3 years ago, I decided I needed to go build my own empire because, as you know, in commercial banks usually, the investment bankers are the ones who, commercial banks bring the money to investment banks to invest. And as you know, I don't know how many of you know, in Kenya, our stock market is doing very well. So those are the things I do for a living. I help people invest in the stock market. I'm also an economist, so I help the government with policy. I am crazy about, especially right now, the African continental trade. I hope you'll be talking about that later on. Yeah, during the weekend, I love, oh my God, I love mentoring young entrepreneurs. My daughter, of course, is a beneficiary. She's here in Kenya. And I am crazy about women and the marginalized in our community. So I run a foundation. It's actually named after my late mother. It's called Duta, N-D-U-T-A. It's a local name. Duta Angels Foundation, and with that I think I've mentored in Soweto. I mentor the marginalized segment of the economy, and I know Mama Kuala, you'll be talking about the digital space. When I mentor, it's very crazy, and I think that's even how I met Mama Kuala in Cape Town last year. When I mentor, I have this crazy way of mentoring. I have a very special interest with the God-given talent. So when I'm mentoring, I always look at the God-given talent that some of our entrepreneurs, some of our young people, I'll shock you. In Kenya, of course, I think like any other country, the literacy level, let's be honest, education is a privilege for some people. So when I go to, for example, the informal sector, the slums of Kenya, different places, even in Uganda and other places, even in South Africa, I've been there. So you find that the creative sector is actually powered by the people who do not have a lot of education. Some of these could be very good artists. They have a skill in their hand. And those are the ones that I try to use to bring out the entrepreneurship skills in them, build it, empower them. I also, as I pass the mic, I can speak all day. My gifting from God, obviously, is speaking. And, as I passed the mic, I happened to be recruited. Last year, I was appointed to be the regional director for Business Engage. I think many of you know Business Engage. They're based in South Africa, Joburg to be precise. But so what we do is we run the Gender Mainstreaming Awards, and I'm also a judge for the Gender Mainstreaming Awards, which we do annually. This is our 12th year, and we keep growing. And what we are saying is that gender mainstreaming is not about men and women. It's about men and women being included in the economic development. So I judge corporates. We go for the corporates. We go and train them. We train corporates on how to do it. and then we recruit them and we judge their processes to make sure that every part of the economy every gender of the economy is included. So it's very nice to meet, especially my fellow panelists, because I think we have a lot in common. And I'm hoping that this will be an interactive session. And as I pass the mic, of course, I cannot pass the mic without welcoming you guys to Nairobi. I live very close to the airport, so I'll be almost like the one ushering you into the country. And yeah, Kenya is a beautiful place. I think it should be in your bucket list. And of course, the beauty of us doing this, thanks to Mama Kuala, I applaud you for starting. I think the hardest thing as a leadership elder, self-published elder, I'll tell you that the hardest thing in anything is getting started. But I applaud you that all of us, we share the same problems across the continent. So being able to do this and towards looking for solutions for rebuilding the Africa we want is something that is very, very personal for me. So God bless and nice to meet you all. Asante.
Asante sana. I hope I got that right.
Yeah,
Okay.
got that right. Asante means thank you very much.
All right. No, I think that's quite good. At least, there's something that we always forget as Africans, that whatever legacies we want to build, we should start in our own homes. So it's good that your daughter has started in the beekeeping and she has her own business. That's quite inspirational. And I wish to see all of us doing the same thing. I mean, most of we always get inspired, or at least look at the Western people when how they deal with business, and they always have their kids around, families around. Not just them, Indians, they do the same, and the businesses grow they don't die after maybe the founder dies, which is what happens generally with our own businesses. So I think it's time that we change the narrative ourselves. So the Africa we want is for us to keep and do as we wish, the way we need to, right? Okay. Last but not least, our junior chamber president, please come in, and then I think we'll go into the questions. I see we are almost close to the 3 o'clock. I'm not sure how much you have prepared in terms of content. So, but I think we would want to start. Maybe after you introduce yourselves, you can start. Then present on some of the challenges that you find the youth are facing in respect of accessing finance. We have our speakers here who are already in the investment and finance space. And we can, from the session, I'm hoping we can look at the challenges and then look at what are the possible solutions that work, that we can implement. It doesn't have to be everything. And so that as we engage, at least after the session, we can try to implement some of the solutions that we have or that are proposed. You can go ahead, Tate.
All right. Thank you, Mama Kuala, for having me here. I would like to thank all of the team, especially you, for engaging us as young people. We always left behind in this kind of discussion as young people, which is, I think, it's now an opportunity for us to speak on our behalf. I'm the sitting president of the Junior Chamber. My name is Lesinyangoban. I'm sitting the president of the Junior Chamber. Junior Chamber is an international organization of young people between 18 to 40 years. We are young people who are dedicated to bringing positive change in their lives and the community that we are living in. I'm now leading one of the young architectural company by the name of Icon Architects. So I think that's a little bit of my introduction for now. Yeah, you said, Mayor, I should get into the contents of the day. The first one was a grassroots initiative that we think can promote access to finance. In Lesotho, there's still a problem into us as young people, especially as vulnerable as like women. You find out there's a problem in terms of financial literacy program, which I think introducing financial literacy program in our communities, in our groups, that can uplift for us to have access to the finance. Again, there's a microfinance institution, which I think in our community, we can introduce such kind of institution in our community. In Sesotho, they are called Mbadeshele. We seem to be having Mbadeshele, but I think we need to move in a section that we need to have Shele MPDs, which are those institutions whereby we are trying to see how to we foster how do we foster the finance into our people? Again, I think for us, a grassroots access to finance can be by giving a mentorship for us as young people, because we are new in this kind of field of being in a business because of the so many issues that are pulling us to be in a business. First of all, it's unemployment rate, which is high in our country as we speak. And those are the problem. We get into a business because we are facing unemployment rate, not knowing the corners of the business industry, which I think through mentorship from you, like our elders, I think that can help us as young people. Again, the challenges that I think is facing SMME, especially as young people, we seem to be having a limited collateral. The banks, when you go for them and ask for a funding, they don't know us because we don't have the history with them, because we're still new in the industry. We're still new in life in general. So that's one of the problems that we are facing. Another problem is that most of our business as young people are not registered. They're not registered because we don't really know what we need to register business in Lesotho. Some of us don't even have that 530 that is being demanded by the government. And issues like high interest rate in terms of going to the bank. When we go to the bank, you find out that banks need a lot of interest rate for us as young people, because we'll be borrowing a small amount of money, which has a high interest rate, than maybe trying to borrow a lot of money because we don't have the relationship, remember, of the bank, like I said before. Those are the problems which I think they are facing us as young people. So for now, I think I need to submit this level. Maybe I will bring some questions so that I can elaborate more on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Tate. Perhaps what we can do is, since we are looking at the same issue, we can look at it from different angles, and maybe from Tate Noko's side, what he has seen as a problem, and then maybe Ms. Efe with under impact, probably what are still the challenges from the women entrepreneurs, and partly Ms. Margaret, just maybe in 2 minutes. Just to add in terms of what has been submitted, if there's anything else that needs to be addressed.
Thank you. That's a good question, and it's a reality that we have to deal with. I think he has covered a lot of them, of the challenges, but one of the other ones that I find is, I know he's mentioned briefly, but, and I can't overemphasize enough, is record keeping. Thank God for the Industrial Revolution. Now women, traditionally, women were keeping records, and youths, I think it's the same challenges that you find. Other than the businesses, people have, you find that we have very brilliant ideas, but we are not, he has mentioned that the businesses mostly are not registered, which is something that I think across the continent, we share the same problem. But other than now the businesses not being recorded, we cannot also show records. I'll give you a simple, and I realize, I think having worked for 22 years, and I know I look young, but having worked for 22 years, I know a lot of us, when I would speak in global events, until my daughter started doing her business, it's when you realize, oops, it's actually deeper than you think. So for one of the things that I've had to, like when we are delivering honey today, my daughter has to write the delivery note. you know, and it's a simple cost. It's not as expensive, but creating a delivery note. Why? So that we track how much in a month she's selling. And also, as I'm doing that, you can imagine as a young entrepreneur, in her head, she's thinking, oh, so we need to document because, you know, she's delivering and she has to get paid. It's not charity. For the Dutai Angels Foundation, I do charity, but for this product that she's delivering, you know, she need to know that, yes, she need to be paid. And also in the future, if, for example, because she's gonna grow for sure, if, for example, she's able to do a certain kilos a month, I can tell you that I can almost guarantee that she's growing. But you see, in the future, she need to be able to account for everything she's doing. The same way with also the beekeeping, we have a farm worker. And the reason I'm bringing this up is that record keeping, we really struggle as young entrepreneurs, as women entrepreneurs. I like also adding the PWDs because we know that their PWDs have the same challenges with this. They're marginalized. So keeping those records, you never know in the future if an investor wanted to you know, come on board. Like right now, obviously the farm, she's expanding in the farm, you know, increasing the number of hives. So for her, I mean, and this, I think as I speak this real example, practical, in Kenya, we call it practical education, because for a very long time, a lot of us, we talk a lot of theories. And, you know, when you talk to the entrepreneurs, when you go to the ground and realize, oops, the challenges are quite a number. Another thing is also, I would say information, access to information. This is a brilliant idea, what you're doing. In Kenya, I can tell you for sure, I am a global citizen, but during COVID, I think we learned so many lessons. I don't know how many of us, how many of the entrepreneurs, you know, like I'll give you an example, like in Kenya, record keeping, we have some solutions for record keeping, you know, and not necessarily the manual records. Another thing is information sessions. You find that we have authorities, different authorities, like in the banking sector. I'll give you an example. We have Kenya Bankers Association, which I'm a member of, and I'm one of the trainers. So you find that entrepreneurs, because in Kenya, we have very many counties. I don't know what you call them in your place. I know in South Africa, they say states. In Kenya, we have, believe it or not, we have 47 counties without counting the diaspora. And you can imagine those counties are spread not just necessarily in the capital city. So if you're talking about information spreading, you find that information is concentrated a lot in the capital city, and people in the village who are actually the producers, like I mean, all of us eat at the end of the day, right? Food security is one of the challenges we must tackle even as entrepreneurs. Majority of the opportunities lie in the in the food security chains. So I was talking about now the people in the rural areas who majority are actually the producers of the goods that we all need. Even like if you look in your part of the world, you do a lot of mining. South Africa does a lot of mining too. Who is the miner? The miner is not in the capital city. They are probably in a very remote area. So I find that for entrepreneurs, one of the challenges is access to good information that can make a difference, information that can make a difference in their, in their business. I can go on and on. The other last one I want to talk about is access to markets. We give an example here in Kenya where you find that the suppliers and the supply and demand side there's always it's like a river in between, or like a big bridge. You find that someone has so much produce, they have an innovative product they're producing, and maybe a lot of entrepreneurs also don't research, because one of the key business lessons that I teach is that before you produce something, before you innovate something, before you come up with any innovation or business, find out what the market, who will be buying your stuff, and what is the need. What is the need you're feeling? What solution are you providing? But anyway, so access to market, I find that the reason you find that there's a big parity between the supply side and the demand is that, sometimes people, and I find that because I'm also in the innovation space, that you find a brilliant guy, like in Kenya, we have many innovation hubs, spread across the country. I'm part of that association of countrywide hubs, innovation hubs. but you find that you find a Steve Jobs equivalent guy, brilliant, even women and men, brilliant people, brilliant ideas. They have innovated a product, but guess what? They cannot bring this product to the market, to the consumer. So those are some of the few challenges I can highlight. I can go on and on and on. I'll take it back to you.
Okay. Yes, Ms. Efe, you wanted to come in?
Sure. Yeah, so I think the a lot of the points have been covered, but to add a little bit from the women's perspective, given that that is where a lot of my experience come from and working hand in hand with some of those women, obviously, on the other hand, wearing my investment hat, right? I think that if we were to balance it, so I'm going to talk about the debt side a little bit and talk about the equity side, and we can see sort of where they marry each other. So from I would say both debt and equity. So debt, obviously, when you're going to the bank, you need a loan. From equity, when you're going to an investor to say, hey, can you invest in my business? I would say one common denominator that I have found there is implicit bias and discrimination. And I said and discrimination because I feel like sometimes, again, our implicit bias forms that discrimination, but we don't even know we're discriminating. I don't know if that makes sense, right? So implicit bias is when kind of like your brain is more biased or more tilted towards something against the other, right? So how does this happen in practice? You meet an investor, or you have investors rather, that have a fund mandate to maybe invest in, let's say, technology, right? And they see, they look at their pipeline and there are 5 men and there's a woman, right? And the 5 men walk in and they explain, this is what we're doing. And the woman walks in somehow because, and in this case, let's say because this are all men on the table, right? They would tend to look, you know what? Yeah, this guy looks like he knows what he's doing because maybe something in their personality speaks to them, as opposed to the woman who works in and they cannot quite connect with her. And it's not as a result in some of those cases, not as a result because they have something against the woman. It's just they don't see themselves in her. That mirror, when they look at the mirror, they don't see a reflection, right? So automatically our brain sometimes is then wired to support those that we feel like, oh, I can, when I was 20 years, this guy reminds me of when I was 20 years, or this guy reminds me of me, right? And women, we also do that. But because the industry, at least the investment industry, and I would commend them because right now we're getting a lot of women in, are predominantly male. So we tend to see men investing in men and men investing in men. And then when the women come in, the connection, there's something, right? So I think that in terms of access to finance, from an investment perspective, I think that's something that is one of the challenges we face. And that is something that we have to be a bit more cognizant about because we all have implicit biases, including me. So we have to be able to recognize that bias in us to be able to help stop the impact of that bias. So on the investment side, we need to think more about, again, it's a challenge, but we have to become a bit more cognizant to say, you know what, I am more, wired to maybe invest when I see, let's say, a Kenyan woman because I'm from Kenya, right? Or a Lesotho woman because I'm from Lesotho, right? So we have to recognize that in ourselves so that we can now be a bit more cognizant to say, you know what, this is my default and I'm going to move out of my default zone, right? So that's one of the challenges we face also in investing. Now, on the bank side, I would give you a brief example. I'm standing in line with my brother. We're in a bank in Nigeria and we are trying to open accounts. And he's actually behind me. And this lady, she's, but he looks way older than me. I'm the older one, he looks older. And this lady looks at him and, my brother is looking to be frustrated. I'm looking calm. And she calls him up. She says, oh, no, you come. You look like you're very stressed. Let me help you, right? And I pause and I'm like, wait a second, but I'm in front of him. And now she's pleading with me to say, because as a sign of respect, she would say, Oga. She would say, no, let me just help Oga first. Don't worry, please, I'll get to you. Let me help him first, right? So you already saw that deference playing, right? And this was a woman doing it because she felt like, oh, this man looks respected. And, she, who was me, who looks younger, can sort of wait so that I can attend to this, in quote, big man or this man that looks respectable. So that is another situation, right? Where, again, our access to finance is also impeded by such implicit bias and discriminations. Now, the other point I wanted to make is cultural idiosyncrasies and how they also play in to at least the collateral. I believe the first speaker spoke about the collateral issue, right? When a lot of women go into banks, and we experience this also with the women we support, right? There are some banks that are doing great that are not looking for collateral, but the interest rates are very high. But we still find that a lot of them are still asking for collateral. Now, the issue is that when we look at data in Africa, right? I don't know any country yet, please, if there's someone in the room that knows, please let me know, where women sole ownership of land is above 30%. Sole, I'm not saying joint. It's a difference, right? When it's joint, it's probably you and your husband, you and your spouse, sole ownership, right? Now, for example, in Kenya, I believe that number is about 1% of landholders titles solely in women's name. In Tanzania, I believe that number is about 9%. So when we look across the continent, we're going to notice a trend that women ownership to land is not as great as maybe in other continents rather, right? And that's something to think about, because then if the banks are saying, look, I'm going to lend you this money, but I need you to bring collateral, but you're asking a woman for something that culturally in some communities is not very well accepted. I am evidence of that, where three of my brothers have land and they're all my younger brothers, but I don't, right? Then there is a problem, because you're telling her that, look, the product is available for you. You need loan, it is available, but you're also telling her you can't access it because culturally, what allows you to access it doesn't quite favor you, right? So that is another big issue, and I completely agree with the last speaker. I believe that was Margaret, that talked about information asymmetry. That is also a very huge issue. We surveyed women and we found out that only 1 in 4 of them actually were aware of the AFCTA. Now, that's a big problem, because if we're talking about, we surveyed, and I think the respondents were over 3,000 women, by the way, across 40-something African countries. So that was a problem, right? Because if we're all singing high praises and talking about the AFCTA, but the people that make up the backbone of the economy are not as aware of it, then who is really going to utilize this? And is the introduction of this act going to create more gaps for us? Right? Is it going to impede our access to finance? Because a lot of us may not be able to stand in line to say, you know what, I have a bigger market now, or my business is expanding, so I need the money, right? Does it burn the bridge, or does it actually help us bridge the bridge? Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. That's quite a mouthful actually, and quite realistic, because I think if I start from where you have ended, Ms. Efe, every discussion, every conversation that is being had around from the policy perspectives all the way down about the AFC, African Continental Free Trade Agreement, for those that are not aware, is that it brings opportunities. But now, what is not said is, how do you get to access those opportunities? Where are they sitting? Nobody knows, and everybody is asking. So I think we need to decode some of the things, but I think there's a lot of other elements that are coming to the fore in terms of the basic company registrations, and also being able to have the records to say, I can actually sustain the business and have access. But of course, also if you go to the bank, you need to put something on the table. And where does that something come from if you're a youth or a woman with no ownership of anything? Some of the challenges, I think, from some other women, it's about husband support, which they wouldn't have. So there are quite a number of social issues we still have to break, but I'm hoping that we can. And I think from at least some of the work that has been done around women, there's a growing trend that women, at least they are growing, they're becoming stronger in business with the right support though. So we just need to tailor the support so that at least we can make those headways. I don't know if that Francis, you have anything.
I think no, I
Yes.
love the statement you just made, but I think I would tweak that a little bit again from my
Okay.
perspective, and maybe it's my bias speaking, so you'll pardon me. I think you made the statement that women are growing in business, right? I feel like women have actually always been strong in business because when we look back into communities, my grandmother was a very strong businesswoman. And how did she raise her fund there? We called it Isusu, or I think I don't know if it's Labedo, I don't remember what they call it in the Eastern or Southern African region, where you gather money together into a pot, right? But
Yeah.
when you also look at her peers or her friends, a lot of those women actually help finance the communities. What do I mean by that? They were financing their children's education. They were financing their access to healthcare, right? So women have always been strong in business, right? But I think what we're talking about now is how do we ensure that we're bridging that access to finance and resource, to your point, you made that point, gap, so that they can scale in meaningful ways, right? Because what we're noticing is that the male-led businesses are scaling, right? You start from one country and you end up in like 3 different countries, but women are building strong businesses within their communities and not crossing the border as compared to their male counterparts.
Indeed, because most of the challenge we in the garage, our business they work quite well. But once we want to grow beyond selling from our own background, it's quite a struggle generally. So thank you so much. Okay, Noko, I'm not sure whether you have anything to add on this from what you had, but I think we can go into what you had wanted to share. I started with the ladies, so I'll start with the men this time. You did say you had a presentation, so we can go into that. And I think what we wanted to check is mostly around the cooperatives. In the African context, they're working quite well. So where are we going wrong between the cooperatives and the other entrepreneurs? Maybe we can learn something from that sector of our society.
Thank you very much, Mema Makwala. I've been trying to follow up. I have been having some bits of glitches here when I'm opening the camera. I've been disconnected several times and I couldn't follow sometimes. Please bear with me when I will now have to speak closing the camera, because now I think I will move more smoothly without any interferences. I think everything that I will have to share today will be included in a short story that I will have to share concerning the MSME sector of Lesotho in 1931 and the MSME sector of 2020. This is 2024, right? 2024, yes. In 1931, here in Lesotho, there were traders in animal skins, wool and mohair, grains, you name them. That was their trade in those days. And in 1933, in 1931, that's when now they were coming out. Our grandfathers, our grandmothers, they were coming out, seeing challenges and trying to think, what is it that we can do to access markets? What is it that we can do to access finance? What is it that we can do to strengthen our businesses? And later on in 1933, there was what is called the red dust. In our language here, we call it it happened in 1933, and there was so much drought in Lesotho in those years. It's well known when someone talks about the red dust in Lesotho, it is associated with a very devastating hunger. And that was the year when one Catholic Church bishop, Joseph Cyprian Bonham, came to Lesotho. And when our Basotho men and women in those years, in 1931 to 1933, were trying to understand what is it that we can do, to boost our businesses, not only that, to fight the poverty, the drought, the hunger that we're going through, they came together, and the bishop from Canada helped them to form or to formalize what we call cooperatives. That was when cooperatives, or the first cooperative in Lesotho, was established. A cooperative, it's a business model, a model in which now this individual businessmen, they were saying, I will have my fields where I produce grains. I will have my apartment where I take care of my sheep and goats for wool and mohair production. But when we have to sell, we will come together, bring the produce together, take it to the market together. When we need finance, we will contribute from amongst ourselves. Now, the bishop was there to assist them because Canada in 1933 was very robust in cooperatives. The model was working so well for them, and their businesses, the economy was already booming on that. So they came together. These were the business people in their own fields. They came together to access markets. And later on in 1957, the very same people, the very same model that started way back in 1933, they established the first banking union in Lesotho. It was called BCBU, Basotho Cooperative Banking Union. That was the first bank established by mere village people through collaboration. So they were business people, they were women in their businesses, they were our grandfathers who were still energetic in those times. They came together, collaborated to make a functional bank. And that bank later on, for those who are in Lesotho and might not know, it is the very same bank that became Agric Bank in Lesotho. And later on, it became Lesotho Bank. We know Lesotho Bank. We don't know where it came from, but it came from those years where people came together and shared resources, brought resources together. So now, coming into what I would say, it is the MSME challenges in our time in Lesotho, and my experience with interacting with other countries through the structures and the boards that I served across African continent. I will say that the greatest challenge, if it is not the only one, because many other things emanate from that, it is an individualistic approach. People trying to work alone, people wanting not to collaborate with one another. But when you look into other countries, Canada, you go to many other countries in Europe, they have had their economies thrive on collaboration and cooperation. But here we are trying to work alone. We think we are fine in our own spaces and corners, and that's where problems are coming from. So the issue of individualistic model, individualistic approach to things has become a lot of problem. This is the first hindrance from access to finance. When we talk about finance, a lot of people will be thinking about banks, thinking about other financial institutions, not knowing that we can collaborate, we can come together as MSMEs. We have such experiences here in Lesotho where business people came together to say, let's build our own funding options. So they do not go to banks anymore. Luckily, I've been part of their auditors. I've audited a number of them. I've been to many other countries. You look at in Kenya, there are many cooperatives, or let me say cooperative banks in Kenya. How does the model work? It works by people who are working in business coming together to say, let's compete with banks. Let's compete with the mainstream financial institutions and make our own finance. So I think if I were to, I don't know whether you wanted me to go through everything that I wanted to share that goes through to capacity, or I can stop here for now to say that when it comes to the challenges facing MSMEs today, I've already said it, but I want to say it again, especially for those who are.
We lost him again, I think. Or is it just from my side? Am I connected? Am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we lost him there. But I think he was coming up with a business model which we can consider for the cooperative society, which is individualism.
We can't hear you. You're muted.
We're connected. I think I lost connection a little bit there. I hope I'm with you now. Okay. I think I've changed connections. I think I've lost connection on the other side. I'm with you now, I hope. All right. Okay, so he ended up where he was actually bringing us back to the lessons from grandmas. And I think there's been a lot of reference in the discussions to what our grandmother used to do back then, and which is still coming back today. A bit of our African socialism in terms of coming together and working together as a community has always been our strength, which I believe we lost somewhere along the way. And it appears as if that is exactly where we may have lost it a little bit. Maybe we need to review again and see if we can't go back. I mean, cooperatives are thriving as we speak. And if we, as the business people, business women, youth, if we were to go into something of a similar kind, possibly we can win. Even if we need investments from the perspective of the banks, and we need to pull in a huge investment, with that kind of support, you would agree me, Ms. Efe and Ms. Kimani, that we could possibly be able to source some funding on the basis of something of the sort. Would you agree?
Yeah, I definitely will agree. In fact, in one of the papers I wrote in a UNDP publication, I believe that was 2021, I did advocate for financing in such a method. And I talked about the fact that I believe that the collateral issue that women face on the continent could actually be switched up, where the banks are still asking for collateral, but I was proposing, instead of asking for the assets and land collateral, one thing we do know very well about African women is that African women do have strong networks, right? So you point to a woman, and when you look at her, you can talk to her and she can tell you, oh, this is my church community, right? These are my sisters from church. And you look again and she say, oh, and these are my sisters that sell beside me. So I'm in this Market Women's Association, right? And you find that one woman probably has at least two different strong communities that she's a part of, right? Her network. So I was putting it out to the banks and financial institution that rather than asking for the traditional and in my view a cake collateral that they usually ask, especially from women, can we now substitute that to what I was calling the network collateral, right? So her network becomes the collateral and not necessarily what she doesn't have access to. We do know she has access to strong networks. So as you lend to her, can people from her community, can people from her church association that are women like her, can people from her Traders Association be the ones to vouch for her credibility and her character and her ability to pay back that loan. And maybe they could even step in for her should it fail, right? So that is something that I have been singing whenever people pinch me and say, hey, what do you think about this collateral matter? And I get on the mic and I sing it loud and clear that is something that we can look about to leverage what women have to get them to access to what they don't have, rather than leveraging what we don't have access to get us something that we still don't have access to.
Indeed, and it could work for us, definitely, if we're to try it. Okay. I'm conscious of the time, and I think we have been dealing with challenges and also proposing solutions at the same time. And I believe the networks that you're talking about, I think if we are to explore that, we may need to look at how then we integrate youth into the whole matter. I mean, if we're to also, if moving into another phase, which is the skill set, there's a lot of knowledge and skills sitting with the older age and women, and but now a lot of it we go away with it. We don't leave it behind because we are always leaving the youth behind in terms of what we do. Working together with the youth, also bringing them there, because we are in the Internet of Things, and of course, the older you get, the harder it gets to navigate the cloud space and the digital space. So could a combination of both youth and women, and of course our men in the midst, because there's always some value that each one brings to the table, work to resolve the issues around finance. And of course, also going into the capacity aspects. So I can start from Miss Margaret, and then maybe Tatele Senior, if you can weigh in on this one, and end with Miss Efe.
All right, thank you. And in that same breath, before we wind up on the challenges, I think I want to coin that with the opportunities I see. I somewhat, the gifting God has given me is that even with the challenges, I still see a lot of opportunities. And I can share one of the biggest opportunities. The government of Kenya, with the help of like-minded, crazy people like myself, in the banking sector, what we've done is that we've been able to unlock opportunities in the technology side. And in Kenya, believe it or not, we were able to come up with to partner with the Telcom, the telecommunications company. One of them, I think you already know it. On your side of town, you call it Vodacom. But they are in Kenya, we call it Safaricom. I think many of you know about the story of M-Pesa. So what has happened is that with the new government, we have digitization is a very big deal here. In fact, it's one of the biggest agenda that the current president, Ruto, is driving, digitizing even government processes and everything. So one of the solutions we've been able to develop is called is a lending solution. And you can imagine how many of the small businesses are benefiting from that. I lost count. I think the last 1 year, we've been able to lend to thousands of small entrepreneurs. And what we are using is actually called factoring. Without the investment banking jargons, factoring is, instead of asking for women to give you collateral, so what the government has done is that using innovation and of course a lot of artificial intelligence, the telecom company, for example, they know how much each person moves on a daily basis. As you know, in Kenya, majority of the transactions, like when I'm buying coffee from a coffee shop, if I'm buying, I think majority of our transactions, even in the banking sector, are powered by M-Pesa. M-Pesa is a mobile money transfer. So we are using the mobile money transfer volumes, transactions, to using artificial intelligence without complicating the jargons, tracking the behavior of a customer and using the behavior of repayment behavior of a customer, especially the micro SMEs, small entrepreneurs, a majority, of course, being women and youths and PWDs. So we've been able to lend that. And what that factoring does is that, for example, Mama Kuala and myself, we could be doing the same business, but she might qualify for more depending on how she's been paying. Okay, so it's using artificial intelligence factoring without necessarily asking both of us to bring collateral, which I think is brilliant. Maybe those would be my remarks. So there's a lot of opportunities there. Another thing, and I agree with, I forget the name, Mafusi. I've seen a lot of your comments, and big shout out to all of you that are commenting on the chat. I was able to see some of the comments there. One of the things, I think one of the reason I'm a global speaker is because my heart is in the marginalized sector. I don't know why God keeps nagging me on that sector. It's actually the sector that I'm very passionate about impacting, because I feel that they have so much potential, but no one is mentoring them. So yes, I've seen your comments about mentoring is one of the other opportunities. Mentorships, business mentorship, promoting entrepreneurship. And can I shock you, in our one of the reasons I wanted to come back home, because I feel like I have so much wealth from Wall Street. Why not bring it back home? So one of the things we are doing with even the local stock market, players, the capital markets in Kenya, we are very keen on financial education, financial literacy education. Believe it or not, in Kenya, because we've changed our curriculum, it's so hilarious. There's a lot of debates out there. If you go to like Twitter, now X, if you go to social media, there's a lot of jokes about, the traditional education system we had was called 844. And what was happening there is that a lot of the students, including myself, of course, in that curriculum, what most people are doing is they were cramming. I don't know what you call this word, reciting. You recite 1 + 1, but you never know where to apply the 1 + 1. So this is one of the new developments in Kenya. So in Kenya, we have gone to a new system where we are promoting a lot of entrepreneurship skills. We are promoting a lot of we call it technical skills, and in fact, and a lot of innovation. And with all those two, what we are trying to do, even as a country, as East Africa, is to say that we don't want to churn out graduates who just know how to cram things. The Pythagoras, the calculus, the magical things that you cram to get A's in school. And what the current new education system, we are promoting entrepreneurship, innovation. And by the way, one of the biggest sector that the government has adopted that is powering and supporting entrepreneurs is in the digital economy. You guys, I think, know that we are in the 4th industrial revolution. We can't even hide from it or run away from it. So one of the things, like right now, actually, our president, I could not go, but there's a tour with there's a whole, a group of people that are visiting Atlanta, Georgia. And what we are doing there is that we've partnered with even some of the Hollywood actors, and we are piloting some of the projects to bring those partnerships here in Kenya, because we have a lot of talented, oh my God, brilliant brains here, and especially on the creative sector, the TikTokers, the content creators, the musicians, the football players. You know, we have so much, and these guys are making a lot of money. You know, and they're actually paying their bills and living off these skills. So yeah, so there's a lot of opportunities, even with the challenges. There's still opportunities. The last one I want to, I know time is not on our side, but some of you might know table banking. I don't know what you call it in your side of the world. Table banking in Kenya was what the other speaker was actually alluding to. You know, some of these things, I think it's old wisdom that we dropped along the way. But I can tell you, like our first lady, she's called Mrs. Rachel Ruto. You know, one of the things people know about her, even before she, the husband became president, is that in the rural areas, for example, she's doing a lot of agribusiness with the table banking with rural women. You know, these are women who did not even go to school, for lack of a better word. But these women, I tell you not, believe it or not, these are some of the millionaires next door. And some of them are doing serious business. And with table banking, other than just saving every month or every week, what these women are able to do is that one of the people was commenting on the chat, you know, the collaboration, people doing business solo, that is no longer the case in my continent, in my side of town, in Kenya especially. Women are willing to lift each other. Women and youth are willing to form groups, because as much as some of our women and youths might not have a lot of education, you know what happens when you're doing group work. When you're saving as a group, you actually tend to exchange a lot of good skills and learn and share. So that is actually a benefit of this group savings and group investments, and even people guaranteeing each other, for small loans within the group. So I think I'll leave my comments there for now to give other speakers an opportunity. But I mean, the list is too long and there's a lot of opportunities, even with all the challenges.
All right, thank you so much. And for those that don't know, the PWDs, just to confirm with you, Margaret, because you keep going back to the acronym, is people with disabilities. Just so we carry the participants along with the conversation. No, thank you so much for sharing that. Yes, ma'am. Margaret?
No, I was saying thank you. I mentioned earlier, PW, person living with disabilities. Yeah, those face the same challenges with women and youth. So thank you for that.
And indeed, and Shay, thank you for sharing the Kenyan experiences with us. And I think Kenya is one of the best practices in Africa in terms of the innovation in digitalization, and it's been working quite well. So it's something to look forward to. And by the way, I think looking for the next sessions, because I want to work towards closing before we go into the another phase. Maybe perhaps we can open up the floor for reactions from them. There's quite a number of interesting comments from the floor that agrees with some of the sentiments that have been said, and they're also sharing some more challenges. If I start from the end, Namafusi wishes to have access to the short courses for business coaching and mentorship. She said there's a lot that women are doing, but unfortunately, they are not coordinated, are working in isolation, which emphasizes the point that has been made that individualism is what is killing us. And Mema Mello says she fully agrees with the collaboration and cooperation to enhance the chances of the success of the businesses. And I think she also agreed with the point from Tatenuku around the more business model for cooperatives. I hope that is what you were talking to, because I think I saw the note coming in when he was presenting that point. Then from Mema Fusi again, she's talking about standardization of products, which is a very big that it? Okay, it's an error there, which is a big challenge because some of they opt to sell products on the black market because of the products they produce cannot meet the international standards. And she made an example of the poultry, which is a very good point. Generally speaking, I think they agree. And there's another point here that women are really, it's a big challenge to break into the male-dominated industries because of the gender biases. I suppose this is talking to the same biases you're referring to, Ms. Efe, when you're into the finance and investment aspect. But I think also when you talk about it applies the same way to the rest of the other services that are required for businesses to run. Okay, and then there are issues around market access and competition, which is if we're to explore exports and move products beyond our small market, then we need to be looking at competition. Our products need to compete, and of course the capacity thereof need to be happening, or it needs to occur. So there's quite a lot we need to do, but I think the greatest solution we have gotten from the discussions today is we need to be coming together, because working alone is killing us. And together our resources can help us be sustainable and be able to succeed in ways we haven't been able to. And if we had to look at the exports, what Margaret brought into the picture in terms of M-Pesa, it's a possibility, because even for cross-border transactions, it is enabled. We just need to understand how it works and how we can tap into it to facilitate the movement of money. It's one thing to talk about movement of goods, but the movement of goods also often facilitated by also the movement of money, right? So if the banks, because the bank systems are quite cumbersome sometimes as far as the process and the procedures to move money to, but then if for SMMEs, what may be easier is the mobile money aspect. We can explore those in terms of how we deal with some of the issues. All right, I don't know if there are any reactions from the panelists. And I think from the discussions, what we had looked into so far, well, we were able to go in depth in terms of the challenges we face in terms of access to finance, and we have also gone into the strategies in terms of how we can access finance. We went into, in very brief, the role of the AFCFTA in accessing finance. I'm not sure whether they do facilitate access to finance. I don't know. Can you weigh in on that one? If after we take the two hands that I see here. Okay, I saw Margaret. I saw your hand first. If you can go in, that Senior, you'll come after her.
That's okay. Just a quick comment on maybe I can share, and maybe some of the other countries represented can try. So the IFC, one of the things that I was very passionate before I left the commercial banking, State Bank of Mauritius, where I was heading women banking, one of the things I was able to, influence is that we realized that some of the changes we want as part of being African leaders, we have to initiate them ourselves. And case in point is that I was able to convince the board that, I looked at the data, our data for procurement, for example. I've seen one of the comments, people saying that, small businesses competing with the big boys. It's not mean feat, yeah? It actually sounds very easy, but it's very hard. when you have to compete with the largest telecom, and maybe I just started 2 years ago, I'm a small telco. So there's a big boy, that whole big boys, club, being able to venture into that. So anyway, one of the things we are championing is gender sensitive, or gender, I think depending on the part of the continent you're in, gender sensitive or gender sensitive procurement, where you actually look at what is the gender. So we call it gender disaggregated data. I looked at the data, and believe it or not, the whole bank, the only procurement we had procured from women entrepreneurs was less than 2%. And I went to the board and I was like, no, I can't be heading a department where I'm actually winning a lot of, we are doing so much. We are training a lot of entrepreneurs. We are even lending to entrepreneurs, but we don't procure from them, meaning that we don't actually buy from them. We buy a very small percentage. And with that, this discussion actually took a lot of convincing, a lot of blood and sweat, a lot of hours, even convincing the board, which thought, as long as we're getting competitive pricing, what is the issue? Who has died? Literally almost saying like, there's no problem. So with that, we were even able to partner with Safaricom, because they do have a lot of, they have a club called Women in Business. And what they are championing there is trying to buy from women, because, for telcos, they do a lot of engineering work, being deliberate about buying from women who are engineers. We partnered with so many other organizations. And I was mentioning that as early as last year, the last 2 years, IFC actually copied my model, the recommendations that I gave. And over the years, they've been able, I think as early as even last quarter, this first quarter of this year, they've been doing a lot of trainings with different organizations. I don't know if we connect on your side of, like in your country, AWEP, African Women Entrepreneurs program, which was started by Hillary Clinton. There are so many women organizations that are partnering with IFC. And what we are telling these companies, for example, the cement company, the big companies, we are encouraging them to actually look at their procedures and processes to start buying from women. So the rallying call from my end is to ask you guys, maybe you can implement such a program that will actually open doors for, I always say that whatever opportunities that are opened by women, actually the youth also benefit, because we are the mothers of these youths. We want to see them thrive. And at the end of the day, whatever opportunities that are available for the women, because they are marginalized in a way, also usually tend to benefit the youths. So these are some of the programs you can do. And even as leaders, can we try to agitate some of these corporates, because we have a lot of influence in these corporates, and they listen to us. And anything you guide them with a lot of data, of course, data-driven research, they are usually willing to do it. And it's the same things we are doing with Gender Mainstreaming Awards, rewarding good behaviors, and even teaching these, organizations that, hey, it cannot be business as usual. Let's actually support the small businesses. And I'll shock you another statistic that was a shocker for all of us. And I'm sure it's the same for Lesotho and other countries. When COVID shut down, everyone was in panic. Big companies were in panic. Guess who was feeding the nation? It was the small entrepreneurs. Like in my side of street, when I just flew into Kenya, the lady who supplies the fruits, the people who supply you milk, the cleaners who come to your businesses, those are small entrepreneurs. So really, this is a casing point to say that we cannot, the backbone of our countries, even during crisis and a recession like the one we are going through, global recession, the people who hold us down, the people who have been actually holding down the economy and thriving, making the economy thrive when many companies are shutting down, is the small entrepreneurs. So yeah, back to you.
I think I want to add a little bit. So speaking about the procurement, Impact also has been running a lot of public procurement programs for women. But one thing we've noticed is that it's not just the women that should be educated on the processes. It's also not just lobbying to get corporates to really look at, I've been an advocate to say, this company should, put aside maybe 30%, 40% of their procurement and allocate that to women, right? But it's not just about that. What we're also noticing is that the processes to even like get into that procurement pipeline or the application itself sometimes is unrealistic for small businesses. And I don't want to mention names here, but there is a very big bank on the continent that I looked at their procurement process. And they're like, yeah, we want to make sure women come in and we want to make sure women are part of our supply chain. But I'm looking at the questions and I'm like, this is unrealistic. These questions are somehow tilted towards the bigger companies, right? Like most women cannot answer this 200 questions in a satisfactory manner because they are small businesses, not because they don't have the right processes in their businesses, but a lot of what you're asking for, it would be very difficult and even cost prohibitive for those women to get access to. So I think like there is an education, like as we talk to the government, as we talk to the corporations to say, you know what? Why not pull more women in? We also have to be looking at the processes so that we don't have that issue we're having again with finance, right? Where the money is there. They're saying, hey, we have all this money and women can apply, but we can't really access it, right? We don't want that to be flipped on the procurement side where the companies, both the government and the corporations are saying, we've allocated X% to women. And I think Nigeria just actually recently did that because I actually wrote to the Nigerian procurement what do you call it, the Nigerian Procurement Committee sometime last year to advocate for this. That is the one step. Now, the second step is looking at the process to ensure that we are actually giving real access. Availability doesn't mean access. And I think that is what we should take away.
All right, thank you so much. I suppose the procurement process is another big area we need to go deeper into. So thank you. I saw a hand from Tatela Sinyao. Okay, you want to weigh in, and I think that Denogo also wanted, unless you have withdrawn that.
All right, thank you. One of the things which I think young people need to believe to themselves, right? Again, I'll talk about technology. There's emerging technology. There's so much opportunity for us as young people. We just need to familiarize ourselves with what is going around. For instance, I can talk about the opportunities in the e-commerce. There's a lot of opportunity which I think we need to sit down as young people and talk about this kind of opportunities. What are the opportunities in the e-commerce? What are the opportunities in the e-work, the freelancing? Because I think young people have capacity to do a certain job because they are from school, right? But you find out they are not ready because of the employment history. And there are so many programs, there are so many websites which I think they can help us as young people in terms of acquiring the skill, acquiring the experience that the employer might need. For instance, I can talk about COSA, YOMA, it's a platform by the UNICEF. So that's kind of the website that we think we can revisit and try to see how do we then boost our experience in terms of workforce. For instance, I can talk about being an influencer. I can talk about Facebook, can talk about TikTok. There's so many which I think can kill this thing. We call it unemployment rate. And through looking at this emerging technology, making network, there's a lot of companies which are willing for us as young people to come with our ideas, to come with our skills and advertise their products for us, and we can gain something there. I think maybe we take this opportunity because we seems to be receiving a lot of information from Lesotho Chamber of Commerce. Lesotho Chamber of Commerce is the motherboard of the private sector. Seem to be inviting us to a lot of presentation, to a lot of engagement that they might have. And we found out that we receive a lot of information, and through revisiting that lot of information, we sit down as a junior chamber. No, this is a lot of information that we think the young people don't receive it. And we started a project by the name of Youth Capacity Building, whereby we are bridging gap between youth and information. There's a lot of it. By last year, I think we collaborated with the Ministry of Youth and other youth organizations, whereby we are trying to train young people in terms of de-risking their business for investment readiness, where we train a couple of ladies and men, and some of them, they were initiated into Sababato program by the name by the Prime Minister, and some of them want to be part of Sababato, and until they went for Kenya Youth Connect. So those are kind of opportunities I think young people need to explore. For instance, as part of trying to address these issues, Junior Chamber is trying to advocate for the youth inclusion in terms of economic development. And there are so many issues concerning us as young people. I can talk about the idling youth policy in the Ministry of Youth, which I think you need to help us as our elders to advocate for that. This youth policy need to be a law so that our young people know where do they report or where do they take mandate from. And again, I think it's all about the mobilizing resources that we have as young people and see through collaboration or how can we leverage on our side. Thank you.
Thank you, Tate. I think you just added in terms of some of the other opportunities out there that we can explore and some of the programs that are already in place for the youth to take advantage of. We have 5 minutes and we haven't really opened the floor to the participants. I had catered for the last 30 minutes for that. I know, Ms. Efe, you need to leave it in the next 5 minutes. I'm not sure whether we can take your 15 minutes. And then you can weigh in just in brief in terms of whether the AFCFTA does really offer the opportunities that are there without us having to do anything. Or there's a lot of all these things we have discussed.
Did you say I should follow that or?
Yes, I did, and I thought you had given up. I didn't hear any reaction from you.
Oh, no, I thought you were asking him. I'm sorry, there was a network problem on my side. I didn't even complete what I wanted to say that other time. But I just want to, if this maybe would be my last opportunity. I don't know when you're saying 5 minutes left. It's 5 minutes before we leave this meeting. But I wanted to say what we are doing as the SMME Support Network Lesotho. And over the past 2 weeks, in my office as the program manager of the project that I talked about earlier, I received over 330 applications, of which 95% of them was from youth, not from youth, and 70% of them women, of those who wanted to be included under our incubation as the SMME support network. And yesterday, I had an opportunity to sit on a panel to hear the pitch decks of some of these people. We managed to do 20 yesterday. And I can tell you, there is innovation, there is creativity amongst the youth and the women in my country, in Lesotho, where I stand. And, from various sectors, we were hearing from them, we were saying, we wish we had, multi-millions of what we can do to support these people. But what I wanted to say is, as the SMME Support Network, I talked about the old wisdom that we have abandoned along the way of how our forefathers collaborated to access finance and markets. As the SMME Support Network, we are doing that in a modernized way. We have what is called the shared service facility. And this shared service facility, this is the place where we do incubation for MSMEs, and it is accessible to every other women business, even those that we did not want to apply for this program. This is where we have technology. Many women, many young guys don't have access to technology, access to technical advice. But under the SMME Support Network, we have this facility fitted with modern equipment for meetings, offices. We don't want to hear anyone from Lesotho, or especially in Maseru, who says they do not have, the offices are expensive, they do not have access to technology. We have the boardroom fitted with modern meeting technologies. We have hot desks, we have office spaces that they can utilize for an hour, for 2 hours, we have so much flexibility for young people and women to utilize under the SMME Support Network Lesotho. And this is, in a way, trying to capacitate young people, capacitate women in business to ensure that we bridge the gap. And mostly when I draw this to conclusion, I also want to say that we have we link them to technical expertise. We link them to mentors because our network is broad. We have, we have worked with banks. Banks have been our clients. We have implemented African development projects. We have implemented many other great institutional projects in Lesotho. Like now we are implementing the World Bank financed program. And we have a broad network of mentors. We have a broad network of people who are far advanced in business, where we are trying to bring people together to share ideas, to innovate and access these markets. And if anyone will complain again that there is nothing that is being done, I'm saying they should go further. For those of us who are in Lesotho in this forum, I encourage you, please visit our facility and see how we support young people, how we support women, how you can benefit from our infrastructure, how you can do that. I'm very happy to hear Ndate listening from the junior chamber, because being a business person myself, some over 10 years ago, I was invited by the Lesotho Chamber of Commerce to co-found the Junior Chamber International. I was the second president of that organization. And now, 10 years down the line, when I saw that they are part of the forum, I was excited because I said, what we started 10 years ago, it's still there. And maybe we need to collaborate further. Thank you, Mema Makwala, for bringing us together with Junior Chamber International. I had thought I would never see them again. Maybe I've been so busy now into the world and traveling around many places in Africa and outside. But now you have brought us together, and I hope myself and the gentleman from the JCI, my friend, we will continue to collaborate even outside this and see how we also assist the young people in their space. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And that collaboration needs to happen. We need to get some of the... Yes.
It should happen. Thank you for bringing us together.
Thank you so much. Messi, I think we can try to have some 15 minutes from the group to see if there are any questions from the floor. You can raise your hands if there is a question from the floor. If there is none, I wanted to close off the discussion with the issue around whether AFCFTA does provide opportunities. And of course, there are opportunities in terms of the market, but how do we get the SMMEs to tap into those? I suppose you would also be, in a way, concluding the discussion, the panelist discussion.
Yeah, so thank you so much. So in terms of the AFCT, I think one of the first questions you'd asked earlier was around finance and if it provides financing, if I heard that correctly. In terms of financing, I think the AFCTA's goal actually is really, the biggest goal is access to markets and ensuring it's seamless within African countries, just helping to demystify how to get goods across and smoothing that process to ensure that the intra-African trade numbers or percentage increases, right? So in terms of financing, given the AFCTA focuses on the movement of goods within Africa, so far, at least to the best of my knowledge, they don't have a finance instrument yet. However, I think we should keep in mind that the AFCTA is also an arm of the AU. So the AU has other opportunities or works with other banks to provide opportunities for financing, right, through its other partner institutions. So not necessarily the AFCTA. what the AFCTA in terms of opportunities has actually been intentional about, based on my observation and speaking with them, is ensuring that people have access to the information on trade. Besides I think I should be very clear, besides them doing the groundwork to unlock trade within the African continent and trying to ensure that women and youths have access, that is where the information comes in. And that's something I know they've been working hard on. They also do have an AFCTA trade fair. I believe the last one was in Tanzania, which was last year, December. And I believe they have another one for youths this year. My last correspondence with them a few weeks ago. I believe they said there was something coming up this year. I haven't sat with them to speak, to understand better. But once I get that information, I'll be happy to pass that to you through my office. And then I believe the Women's is back next year, from what I understood from my email correspondence. But again, I haven't had the opportunity to sit with and chat with them. So those are also some opportunities, right? Because I feel like participating in trade fair isn't just about selling your goods that day. It's also about creating a network, creating your own network within Africa. Because obviously, when you go to international trade fairs, it's not just about the country you're in. So even if you were the one in Tanzania last year, you may have been lucky to meet people from Mozambique, Zimbabwe, whatnot, right? And those people could become your customer or part of your value chain. So I believe that is what the AFCTA, again, to the best of my knowledge, has been doing to ensure that they're unlocking trade on the continent. I'm sure probably at some point, maybe they'll think about financing instruments that could help unlock trade finance.
Indeed, that's very helpful. Thank you so much. I don't know if there are any questions from the floor. We're working towards closing, but I can ask somebody from the floor to speak on behalf of maybe two people. Mayor Simone, I think. Ambassador Simone, you're from Namibia, right? I hope you have, I think your mic can be open, is enabled. You can speak. And maybe then, Memamela, would you want to speak on behalf of the participants? I can open the mic for the both of you, just so you give us feedback in terms of what you had, and then we work towards closing. But as you prepare yourselves, next week, we were talking to some contacts of ours in Kenya. What we are trying to do is collect some of the data in terms of if we, as Lesotho, want to tap into the African market. Kenya is a big market. We can explore and see what are the critical areas of focus that we can collaborate on. So we'll share the details of this webinar, and I think it was intended for next week, this Saturday, but earlier, not in the afternoon. So I'm just highlighting it there so that you don't get surprised when you see the communication. Ms. Simone? Okay.
Sorry, I missed that. Were you addressing? Sorry, can you repeat?
I was opening the floor to two participants just to give us feedback on the presentations.
All right, thank you, thank you.
Okay, so while I had asked, I don't know if there is anybody else who wants to speak, but Mema Mello, we have opened the mic and the camera for you to say a few words in terms on behalf of the participants. So by a show of hands, I'll see if there's somebody else who wants to come in.
Okay, thank you very much for the opportunity. I'm Mamelo Mahlota, one of the youth entrepreneurs from Lesotho, from the company called MHM Fresh, which is an agro-processing company based in Lesotho. This session has been a very, very inspiring one and very insightful, because I believe that most of the information that was shared here, especially the challenges that are faced by women and youth, are some of the things that we know, but I think the implementation of strategies to solve those problems have been delayed, especially in our country. So I believe that now seeing that it's been a challenge in most African countries, not only in my country, I believe that the collaboration between the different organizations present here will try to resolve that challenge, and that entrepreneurship for women and youth will be better in future. Thank you very much for organizing this webinar, and I hope going forward in future you organize more webinars like this that will give us more insightful information and learn more from what's happening in other African countries. Because I mean, I believe that we as Lesotho entrepreneurs, we do want to tap into other countries. So knowing how it is in other countries, I believe is also important. Thank you very much.
Thank you, May. Okay, going once. I don't know if there's anybody who wants to speak. Going twice. Gone. Okay. So I would like to thank I'm humbled by the speakers that came. Ms. Efe, especially, I know you had quite a tight schedule, and Margaret, all of you actually, made a special dispensation to actually come and talk here. A word of appreciation from me and the team. I have a team that I work with from Lesotho that have been also helping us with the technology, and their youth. So we are trying to, as we go and move along in this journey, pull them in, so that we collaborate and harmonize our skill set and see where it can take us. And I would like also to thank the participants for being patient with us up to so far. And I apologize that we started late because of the technology aspect, but finally, at least, we're able to achieve what we had intended to achieve today, which was to cover 3 areas in terms of the discussions. One was to address, just to say, let's remind ourselves, what are the challenges that the entrepreneurs and SMMEs are facing out there? How do we resolve them? And also, what are the opportunities that are there? So we'll continue to explore the opportunities, but at the same time, I'll call upon you to implementing some of the solutions we put forward. Of course, a lot of what we need to do needs to come from us internally. But as we formulate some of these aspects, we can always get opinions from you in terms of how you would do it, how you would advise, especially as we navigate the investment and commercial bank side of things. And I thank you so much. I don't know if there's any closing words from that. Margaret, maybe you can do the closing on behalf of the participants. I know I asked Ms. Efe to close off, but I think I can offer you in 1 minute. I know you can speak, my dear sister. Margaret?
All right, so for me, it's again to just say thank you so much for being deliberate about bringing us together. We appreciate you, Mama Kuala, and we look forward to the physical, I think, meeting where people can exchange goods and, of course, services. That's what my summary of African trade is about. You know, some of us who have lived in the diaspora, in the US especially, for a very long time, I think Africans, we think the West is what is, you know, like the best. But can you imagine? I'll give you an example. So I was in Ghana last year, and I realized that their cocoa butter is to die for. And that's the whole idea of the African continent trade. Yeah, without complicating, I know there's a lot of jargons we use it as guys in the investment banking world, but the African trade, I think if we can embrace it, the Africa we want, we can rebuild it ourselves. I have nothing against the West, but I can tell you for a fact, it would be cheaper. It's very expensive for us to, like, for example, when you're exporting your goods to, let's say, America, if I could be trading with, for example, Tanzania more, and Lesotho more, and you know, Ghana and the rest of the continent, it would obviously make a lot of sense. And I believe the continent has everything it takes, including the skills to do it. And of course, without forgetting our youth and our women and our persons who are able differently. So thank you. And I look forward beyond this call. I look forward to getting to meet all of you, and especially the panelists. And you're doing brilliant work. And let's keep pushing, the agenda of the continent. God bless.
Thank you so much. And everybody must have a lovely, lovely evening.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Same to you. Bye.
Bye.